What is up? Welcome in to today's episode of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We were discussing on the show, or before the show, what the opposite of a Victory Monday is.
Because that's where we're at.
We're in like a malaise Monday, I think.
You guys got bullied at home in bad, inclement weather by a dome quarterback.
We'll get to that.
In front of Vince Lombardi's Spirit.
But
we got our asses kicked in the desert at a place that was probably filled with 70% Bears fans.
Your take about just the week that was, and you saying that that's going to carry over, and how the infighting, the Tyreek Stevenson,
it's too much.
Him being on the sideline to start the game, they came out about as flat as can be.
I'm going to save my takes for that.
Save all that
because my palms started sweating a little bit thinking about this, so I'll save it.
Because I have big Packers takes as well from that game. But we'll start with this. The Raiders cleaning house overnight. Luke Getsy, OC, gone.
Yep.
QB coach, Rich Scangarello, gone. O-line coach, James Craig, gone. Apparently, as Sam Monson, I stole this from him on Twitter, eloquently put it, it's everyone's fault but Antonio Pierce, apparently, out in Nevada.
Yeah, it's interesting because of some of the things, if this was in a vacuum and they fired all these coaches and left the head coach, I would be like, okay, that could be understandable. Maybe they don't fire head coaches during the season. They don't want to completely lose this season in terms of progress for young players and stuff like that, because it can really derail you. But when we take into account the fact that there have been things extracurricular out of school there in Las Vegas with the social media stuff and Antonio Pierce, Devontae Adams leaving, it's just been a toxic environment. And you have to think it starts at the top with the leadership. And I know a lot of people, the majority of people vouch for Antonio Pierce's character, knowledge of the game, understanding of football. But you and I both know this head coaching thing it's a lot more than that. So it's interesting to see the position coaches get fired, not Antonio Pierce. Why not wait till the end? I understand Luke Getsy and this offense have been anemic, and you can blame the quarterback coach, but you don't have a quarterback on the roster, right, Mike? I mean,
yeah, that's obviously part of it, but this always felt, and I think I've said this a few times before, this year, or just like their offseason of who they hired, whether it was head coach Antonio Pierce, whether it was OC Luke Getsy, even like QB coach Rich Scangarello, GM Tom Telesco. You hired guys who were proven commodities.
Yeah.
Like guys who have been in the NFL a good amount of time.
Pelts on the wall kind of guys.
And with every single fan base that has dealt with these guys has been there telling you, don't hire them,
Yeah.
Now, I will say, Tom Telesco,
we know who they are.
He had a good draft. Brock Bowers, Jax Powers Johnson.
JPJ.
Those guys, they've been studs. But I think this was any Bears fan could tell you, any Broncos fan could tell you with Rich Scangarello, they weren't good at their previous stop. So this was kind of, we all thought this heading into the season, and now we're barely halfway through, and it's like, okay, yes, they're now figuring it out to the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm not sure what they thought was going to happen here.
It just goes to show how few options there are at the top. We've got the election coming up this week, and there's, sometimes people say we've got 330 plus million folks in America, and these are the folks we trot out there. Well, sometimes we say that about these coordinators that get hired, these O-line coaches that get hired. They're not really great, but they're the ones that are available. So if you're a guy like Antonio Pierce, trying to fill your roster of coaches with your staff of coaches with experience.
It is still, that is what a lot of people complain about in the NFL and the hiring process. It's still such a closed ecosystem. There's 32 teams that have, a dozen or so coaching positions. That's, somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 positions total. That's a pool of 400 to 500 across the entire landscape of the United States to pick from, because you don't go down to college. It's rare to see a Ryan Grubbs, the Washington OC, make the jump up to the NFL and become an NFL OC. That's just, the game's too different.
They're quality control guys first, usually.
Yes.
They're writing up the note cards for the scout team, and then they become who they become.
Exactly. So it is such a tiny pool that gets so few new entrants every year that some teams just end up with, what we're seeing with the Raiders this year. So to me, not terribly surprising. This always felt kind of like a lame duck staff.
How much did Tom Brady have to do with this decision?
I don't know. I still wonder how much he actually is making decisions. He's such a small, he's a minority owner, very low stakes, but obviously I think was brought on for some football acumen that he has. But I think he probably had zero to do with this. I don't know how he can do day-to-day operations.
In my fan fiction brain about sports, like Tom Brady is pulling most of the strings there. And Mark Davis has been like, we're going to lean on your decision-making, Tom.
Brady's like texting at halftime.
And now he's in the booth, like questioning the calls in yesterday's game, which is, I'm going to sneeze.
He could get fined.
But he's such a Raider. He's like, F it. I'm still going to say, call it how I see it. That's like the Max Crosby of broadcasting. He just says what he says and says how he feels. That's the Raider way, bro. That's silver and black. Tom Brady feels like the perfect choice. Decisions like this are brash and leave us scratching our heads. But there's some things that Tom Brady does that leaves us scratching our heads too.
I bet he's just a figurehead. I'll be honest.
Okay.
And that was actually yesterday was the first time I've really listened to a full Brady broadcast because obviously it was doing.
What'd you think?
Packers Lions. He is rough around the edges. Just the dead air, like the timing that he has. And one time he missed the total points. He said they were up by 21 when it was really 18. Then he's like,
math's tough on the fly.
I know, but it's
sometimes I just stay away from numbers in general.
You don't commit to a number.
I just say how many possessions. I just know if it's 8+.
All right. Raiders. Yeah, I think this is the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. You're going to see a brand new coaching staff there next spring and hopefully a brand new quarterback as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After this, going to get to the full slate of games from week 9.
Today, with the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written. The National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ plus players and allies. Here is a home with no penalty for being you.
All right, Colts, Vikings, Sunday Night Football.
Yep.
Vikings back to their defensive dominance, win going away 21-13. Really wasn't that close of a game.
It wasn't even an ass kicking by the defense. It was just a numbers game. There was too many guys for the Colts to figure out how to pick up. Joe Flacco, obviously not the most mobile guy, and there's a lot of those opportunities throughout the game when you're playing without the lead as the Colts. And I got to give credit to the Colts defense. So that defensive front played tough as hell last night. Grover was balling. DeForest is looking like an avatar out there again. I think he's got 3.5, 4 sacks in 3 games, I think. But at the end of the day, it just looked anemic, the offensive effort from the Colts.
I was surprised you had Cam Robinson playing right away.
Yeah, that was surprising. That was surprising. And I did notice he gave up a sack, but it was on one of those BS chips where the tight end chips him too far, redirects the guy. And I tweeted last night, I was like, look, either double team with me or get the hell out of my way. That's probably what Cam Robinson had to say in the huddle after that play.
I will say this, the Darnold, and I think everyone's looking at Darnold being like, is he our quarterback next year? Right? You know, a lot of these teams that are kind of out of it. Is he good enough to be the guy? I think these are the games that give me pause because the 2 picks he threw were god awful.
There was 3 guys in a line towards his left, and he threw it to the middle guy. It was like, he just must not have seen him.
He didn't see him, but that's the scary part, is that he didn't see a guy who was truly underneath his wide receiver the entire time he's looking at him. You know, if you didn't see that guy, and that's just been the story of his career, he misses those guys. And then the other one is a little more forgivable, the second one, because it was a DB making a great play. He was the flat defender that really saw where the route concept was going and broke on it before, drove on it. You expect that guy a lot of times to not see that coming, to be stuck out in the flat more. So I can maybe forgive him a little bit for that one. But the first one was just, so plays like that, if you don't have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, who was really nice to see back out healthy again,
Aaron
for
Jones,
this Minnesota Vikings team, Aaron Jones, the running game, those 2 offensive tackles, when you don't have that, and you're going to get a little bit more panicked and have to be a little bit more precise, those plays will happen on a consistent basis. So I'm still scared if I'm, there's going to be a handful of teams that are going to be left holding their, come draft time in this quarterback class, just no other options, being like, who are we going to get?
Yep.
I'd be scared to sign a guy like Sam Darnold and think he's going to replicate what he's doing right now in your offense.
It's a great setup. I mean, we always talk about how brilliant Kevin O'Connell is, but it's the pieces too. And you just talked about it. And I think that you couple that with a real dangerous defense, and you are in the prime situation to have success as a quarterback. That's what we're seeing in Minnesota. And if you were to make a move on him, like you said, I wouldn't put all my chips in the middle saying Sam Darnold could replicate this.
And I'll say this. I saw a lot of people being, critical of the Anthony Richardson benching last night because the Colts offense was still anemic.
Yeah.
They're not the first one to look like that against this Minnesota Vikings defense. There was not a lot for Joe Flacco. He made some mistakes as well with football, but they, Brian Flores
had answers.
Had Shane Steichen's number in that game. It just did. You were out your starting left tackle too, and you shut down their running game. And that's obviously going to, when Richardson's in there, you're going to run the ball a little bit more effectively just because of the numbers and what he adds to that. But it wasn't a performance thing in my eyes, the Richardson benching, right? I think we can all agree that he needs the reps. Getting him to play defenses like this that are exotic is a good thing for a guy like Anthony Richardson. The benching of him was more of a signal to him about what he needs to do going forward.
We got to get serious here.
Yes. And not necessarily hey, we're trying to make the playoffs, let's start Joe Flacco sort of thing, in my eyes. So I don't think...
They used to call that the come to Jesus meeting. We would have rookies that would come in and maybe they were drafted highly or something. There's a lot expected of them. And they show up and they just kind of roll it out there with what they got. And some coaches will allow that. And that's where you can get that coaching staff where you're just a regular coach. You're not a guy that I'm about to allude to. But then there's coaches that have that come to Jesus meeting, and it's met with the right attitude. Let's see if this come to Jesus decision for Anthony Richardson actually enables him to go do some growing as a quarterback and a leader. I mean, grow as a leader first, become the quarterback all the while, but definitely the leadership part after, what we talked about.
There's another youngster that we'll get to in the Bengals game who's probably needs like a come to Jesus, maybe like an Allah. He needs every
come
God
to Joey
in his favor at this point, but we'll get to that one in a little bit. All right, let's get to Lions Packers because we have to get it out the way. This was one of the games. I didn't even go back and watch the All-22 on this.
Yep.
Burn the tape. I don't want to see it. I know what happened. The Detroit Lions offensive line is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They controlled the line of scrimmage consistently in that. And then the Packers made far, far more mistakes than the Detroit Lions did in that game. 5 drops by Packers wide receivers in that game. Like 3 bad snaps from Elgton Jenkins, who was starting his first game at center because Josh Myers was out.
That's tough.
And a missed field goal. Just everything that kind of could go wrong did go wrong for the Green Bay Packers. Nah, that's a little bit of an overstatement, but just it wasn't there. And then Jordan Love was not healthy, man. What are we doing throwing him out there in the rain, in those conditions, when he was obviously labored, when in his condition, I think you can argue with his condition in the conditions. Malik Willis gave you a better chance to win that game.
And those conditions and who you're playing against could end up forcing Jordan Love to re-injure that thing and even worse.
Yes.
So you could double down on the negative and hopefully Jordan Love gets out of this thing okay. But at the end of the day, to your point, you could turn it into one of those black and blue division games by putting Malik Willis in there, getting the run game going. We trust that offensive line.
It was good.
We've talked about this offensive line. Yeah. We've talked about LaFleur's ability to scheme up an effective run game, a creative, unique run game with Josh Jacobs and Malik Willis. You got numbers like we talked about with Anthony Richardson. They can really get it done in Green Bay with that.
And I think that's their best run blocking 5, if I'm being honest. So with Josh Myers, I believe with the wrist, they moved Elgton Jenkins from left guard to center, put in the rookie first rounder Jordan Morgan at left guard, which is where I always thought he was going to be best at in the NFL, given he played left tackle, but felt more like a guard. To me, that 5 is your best run blocking 5. And I think we saw that in that game. They ran the ball really well. It was just when Jordan Love made a nice play, it was dropped. And a lot of times Jordan Love was not making nice plays. He was not playing good football. And the pick 6 he had before the half. We touched on it a little bit on the Thursday afternoon show that we do on CBS Sports Network.
I thought it was going to be Brian Branch, but it was
Kirby Joseph.
Like
Kirby Joseph, his 6th pick of the year. I was
opportune moment too. Yeah. Just strangle any momentum from this football team before the half. Get yourself a pick 6, steal a possession. That's just a killer.
And for anyone who's anti-analytics, anti the 4th down movement, the Lions won this game because of their 4th down decisions. The 4th and 6, that was one of my favorite plays of the entire weekend. I don't know if you remember this one. It was the 4th and 6, first half at the Packers 6. They line out like they're going to go for it. And with Dan Campbell's sort of history of being aggressive in those situations, it lulled the Packers into thinking they were actually going to go for it. And so with 3 seconds on the clock, Goff gives a hard count, gets the Packers to jump, then puts them in a situation where they can actually go for it, because from the 6 to the 11 is nothing for a field goal kicker. But a 4th and 3, like a 2-point conversion range, all of a sudden you're in a great spot. They convert and
coin flip.
That was, and then their second touchdown, the rush touchdown by, was that Gibbs? Another 4th down conversion, 4th and 1, a little longer out, long run.
It's ultimate belief in your roster.
Yeah.
When you're a guy like Dan Campbell and you can touch every corner of that locker room with your personality and the belief that you instill in your players, and you empower these guys with opportunities on 4th down and 2-point conversions and real opportunities to turn the tide of momentum and establish dominance against your opponent, that builds over time and like a wave and a wave and a wave, and eventually it hits the shore. And you're just like, we're going to beat the shit out of anybody if we have this attitude. And with this coach, Dan Campbell, anything's possible. Jared Goff, again, really, really good in those conditions. I myself woke up yesterday thinking that Jared Goff and the Lions were going to be a bit off. And then I see the ultimate troll, Amon-Ra St. Brown, show up in a black hoodie that says Green Bay sucks. And he's such a troll. He made Green Bay one word. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
He's just
like, what is that?
He is the ultimate troll. He's the ultimate heel. I don't think anybody does it better in the game. There's been a number of guys that we've watched since we grew up watching football that are ultimate heels, defensively and offensively, but I think nobody does it better than him. And he combines that with his podcast, and he's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of Amon-Ra.
And he backs it up. I mean, that 4th down conversion for a touchdown that he had was
he backs it up, every week.
Toe tap on the sideline. Why do the Packers seemingly, this is just shoot from the hip, I didn't do any research on this, for some reason it feels like anytime there's a game with elements, they're the ones that are unprepared. And maybe I'm just thinking about the divisional round playoff game against the 49ers.
They're really good at home in great conditions.
Yes.
That's true.
But for some reason, when it's like snow, rain, which you should be good, like in Green Bay, that should be, you're playing a team that hasn't played outside all season long, and you're the team that looks like you played in a dome all year?
If anything, your game is not going to be elevated, but the other team, you expect them to be below 0.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. It looked like the Lions showed up and they met the weather head on, and Green Bay kind of, like you said, they fumbled the bag here at home. You got the best home field advantage in terms of weather.
I will say this, though. Christian Watson, remember how on the mailbag the other week, someone's like, why isn't he taking the next step? He had one of the worst ball tracking mishaps
you've been saying it all year
I've ever seen in the NFL level. A guy who stopped, turned around, jumped up, and the ball went over his head on a go ball, on like a deep route. I've never
looked
seen
like the kid you put in the 6th inning in right field in Little League Baseball. Remember, you have to play 2 innings in the field,
and the ball goes.
You play 2 innings in the field, you get 1 at bat. That looks like Christian Watson tracking the baseball. Right,
the right fielder who's like, no matter what, sprints in.
I'm like, hey, first step back, Johnny. First step back. Deep is the deepest, Johnny.
Christian Watson, first step back. Tom Brady was even criticizing him on the broadcast. He said,
Jaden Reed is quickly becoming one of my favorite players.
Oh, he's great.
He is so much fun to watch.
Don't have to worry about him week in and week out. But
with a guy like Malik Willis, you can focus on your run game, and you can have plays drawn up to where Jaden Reed can catch the football with space in front of him. And I think the guy for that job is Matt LaFleur. And if Jordan Love's not healthy, I don't want to continue to see this iffy brand of offense from the Packers.
100% agree. 100% agree. All right, let's get to Dolphins at Bills. Bills take it on a 61-yarder. Not as time expired, but almost. The Dolphins cover the spread, though. It was 6.5-point spread. The overhit's 49.5.
Dolphins showed me a little something. Not defense, but they showed me a little something. They found out in the second half of that game that the Bills had no answer for their stretch zone running game, and they just spammed it. I mean, they went off in that second half. The D-line for the Bills, just gap control was an issue for them. But the Bills just have their number, man. Something about it. We got to get Harry on the mic to talk about. I would love to get Harry on the mic to talk about it. And maybe next week we do I really like that we have some impassioned fans for different teams here. We've got the Dolphins covered with Harry, the Packers. Obviously, I love the Chiefs and the Bears. So we've got some corners covered here. It would be nice to have a a Dolphins rant, almost like a radio caller, first time, long time. It could be Harry. Hey, it's Harry, and I'm in Coral Gables. These are my thoughts. It would be cool. I don't know. I don't have my IFB in, so I can't hear Harry. But next week we'll do that for sure.
We need him to get on the horn about this because that was a heartbreaker because you had him. And truthfully had him.
Tyler Bass's kick would have been good from 80 yards.
It was such a good game.
It would have been good from 80 yards.
It was the most unimpressive game-winning drive I've ever seen from a quarterback. I have it written down, the play-by-play. It was sack, batted pass, bailed out by an unnecessary roughness, underthrew a quick out, threw a hitch high that kept his wide receiver in bounds when he wanted to get him out of bounds. 4-yard hitch, spike, 6-yard hitch, underthrew a deep over, and then a 61-yard.
The deep over, though, could have easily been an explosive there.
The deep over was a touchdown.
It was going to be an explosive. It was just underthrown.
He had multiple opportunities.
He was pissed.
Didn't complete any of them, and then gets bailed out because the kicker shows up at the end.
Tyler Bass overcoming adversity. We love to see that. Keon Coleman dropped a would-be touchdown. Hate to see that for a guy that's building trust.
Interception.
Yeah, for a guy that's
ruining
building
Josh Allen's amazing stat of pick all year.
Because it's funny. Patrick Mahomes has way less turnover-worthy throws than Josh Allen, but yet he has way more interceptions, which I think is always a funny stat because you can't just look at these touchdowns and interception numbers and know what the hell's happening.
And know how they played, right?
Yes.
It's you. If you throw the ball to a defender, I mean, it's like Jameis last week, right? We said the turnovers will come. He tried to throw them last week, and lo and behold,
another Harry Nostradamus.
This week they came. I will say this: we have a clip of it. The hold on the Josh Allen touchdown was the worst holding call I've seen all season long. Pull this one up. I could not believe it. I think it's the right guard here, 95. That was a hold.
Run it back. I didn't even.
Right guard, 95. Oh, we got to pause.
It's after this point.
It was
right when he goes
the
to
right
retrace.
Guard. 95 doesn't even try to separate off the block.
See, I think that's just a tired D lineman.
Yeah, there was no hold. I mean, there was
just a tired D lineman right there. That's just a guy who is not convinced that he wants to pursue Josh Allen. And the fact that that's even considered because the ref assumes everybody's making a tremendous effort to go get the football. He's like, I see you there, bud. You're making your best effort. When in reality, that guy is just checking the box.
He was gassed.
Checking the box on film.
There was no hold. It was, I think they thought it was
the equivalent of a flop.
Because he didn't move. But he didn't try to move was the problem there. Another one where we need a sky judge just be like, the play was too cool that Josh Allen just made to ruin it with that holding call. I will say, though, Allen's last touchdown, he was about 75% of his way to Will Levison. He was at about a 45-ish degree angle. He didn't quite get past 45, but he was close. Yeah, he was there, and he was falling this way.
Cocking that thing.
Almost Levis, but it ended up working out.
He's so much. I mean, Josh Allen's so much fun to watch play football. You just tell me that like a superhuman giant gets to play quarterback who's got the arm of a god and the attitude of a middle linebacker. Come on, it's like Brian Urlacher with an arm out there.
Dolphins fans, I feel for you. The Bills got your number. Bills
they just score a lot, bro. They just score a lot. The Dolphins scored a lot. They showed me something there, but at the end of the day, they just couldn't score as much as the Bills, and that's the story. It's the tale as old as time here between these two teams.
Silver lining, your first round pick, Shop Robinson. He looks good.
8-0 at home.
He can rush the
67% completion, 262 a game, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Should be 29-6. Thanks, Keon. 115 passer rating.
Thanks,
pretty good.
All right, let's get to the Jags at Eagles. Eagles win 28-23, but they had their beehole puckered on that final drive because if they lost that game, that would have been one of the worst losses I can remember in terms of lopsidedness to still lose. It would have been worse than Patriots Jets last week when the Patriots kind of snuck that one out and had no business doing it. The Jaguars legitimately had no business doing this.
Well, especially with how Trevor played and the turnover margin. And
so the numbers 447 yards to 215. Eagles, 3 turnovers for the Jags, 1 for the Eagles. And this one, 38 minutes and 12-second time of possession for the Eagles compared to 21.
It was like the Vikings and the Colts last night.
Yeah.
It was like, you you're going to get the ball every once in a while, and you're going to have 5 plays, and then we're going to go back on offense and take the life out of this game.
Yeah, one team could move it. One team lucked into a few scores, shall we say, because did you see the trip Saquon Barkley fumble that was tripped, or like that he got touched, but they said it wasn't, not why he went down?
No.
So the Trayvon Walker fumble recovery.
Oh, yeah. Trayvon Walker, by the way.
Move him to tight end, dude.
Freak show, dude.
What are we doing here? That was insane.
Yes. In a crowd of men, just shoving men out of the way.
He runs a 4.51.
Yep. He's
6'5", 270.
That's what they need to do to Anthony Richardson for real. Just give him the rock and let him run like that.
I'm not even joking. Just like try a package. Try a package or two for Trayvon Walker at tight end just to see.
Extra juice is when you bring a defensive player over to the offense. They want nothing more than to show out, and you would get the most juice out of Trayvon Walker on the offensive side of the ball.
That was very impressive. And again, I'm not even joking. I want to see him play a little bit of offense because that was freaky stuff that he did with the ball in his hands. Here was what after the fact. So on the play that Barkley is touched on his heel by, I believe it was Ventrell Miller. Then he hits his own offensive lineman, all kind of within a split second.
Yep.
Goes to the ground, ball hits the turf, ball comes out, Trayvon picks it up, runs it back for a touchdown. The ref, they ruled it a fumble, that it wasn't down by contact. After the game, here was the exchange. Why did you determine that on-field ruling was a fumble? Was in fact a fumble. On that play, the running back was touched by a defensive player, number 51, and then he did have contact with number 69 in the offense. It was deemed a stumble on the field. So because it was a stumble, when he went down, he would not be down by contact, and therefore it was a fumble.
Stumble.
And then the question was, so what would have qualified as down by contact when number 51 touched him there? In Butterworth, the ref said, if no other player hit him, and they ruled it not a stumble, and he went down after contact by number 51 in the defense with no other contact, and he went immediately down, then he would be down by contact. I do think he stumbled because of contact with the offensive lineman. But it was so close after the contact with the defender that when you get your foot taken out, that's often causes a stumble as well.
Yes.
That being able to litigate that as a ref and say, I know for sure it was the O-lineman and
stumble
not
versus
the defender at all. Man, I think that was, if the Eagles would have lost that game, they would have been pissed.
Yes.
Pissed.
Well, Jalen Hurts, another week of being efficient with the football.
Yes.
Being able to find his absolute stars on the outside. You take the pressure off him by utilizing Saquon Barkley. At any given time, Saquon Barkley is the best player on the football field. And I think that Kellen Moore and these guys in Philly have just greenlit this guy to put the team on his back, essentially. And it opens up the other superstars to have success. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. I mean, these guys are beasts.
Post-bye, they're 4-0. And now I say post-bye, but it's really post A.J. Brown returning from injury is what it is. Because he's the reason why this offense can consistently do what they do. Because he can win those ISO routes on the outside. Devontae Smith, though, we got to talk about the catch he had. And we got to talk about Saquon Barkley making the most absurd hurdle in NFL history, in football history.
Is this like the best play ever?
I've never seen anything like it. Even high school level, collegiate level. If you've seen it in high school,
I 100% can guarantee that some kid in Texas has done this in high school, but nobody has done this on an NFL field. Nobody has done this against professionals. Okay. Saquon Barkley looks like he has some sort of switch that controls gravity. He has eyes in the back of his head. My wife was like, why did he do that? If somebody was going to, I'm like, he just wanted to make one guy miss. And that was the most creatively athletic way he could do it. Nobody can do it like Saquon Barkley. I'm sure Derrick Henry would have ran through those 3 guys, but Saquon has the ability to go over guys.
Henry's a ground game kind of guy. He's
a tank. Saquon's like a chopper, attack helicopter.
That I screamed when I saw it. I couldn't believe. I was like, yeah, one of those. Just what?
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. It was a play that if you saw, I tweeted this out yesterday. If you saw that in a movie, say you saw that in like Friday Night Lights,
unrealistic.
You're like, hell is this? It just takes you out of the moment.
This is not a football movie.
That's never going to happen. But yes, it just did on a football field. And then Devontae Smith catch, one of the catches of the season, because not only did he one-hand it, but then he toe tapped 2 feet.
And even in slow-mo, it was like he's out. But then, no.
Nope. Or he bobbled it. He didn't come with that clean.
He's a freak.
Nope.
The Slim Reaper.
I'll say it's not only A.J. Brown that's helping post by. Cooper DeJean has been awesome since entering into the starting lineup after the bye week. Had a pass breakup in this one on the third down. Big play. He's been awesome. Nakobe Dean, too. Got to give props to him. He's been on a tear as well over that same span. Had a PBU and the game-winning INT, which was a play to make for a linebacker. Having hands like that, rare to see. So good on the Eagles because they made everyone stop criticizing Nick Sirianni because he would have been put in a body bag by Philly media had they lost that game.
Does this help or hurt Doug Peterson's cause?
I mean, it hurts, dude. Because
it's an L.
It's an L. I still think I've been saying he's probably the next coach gone, but we have a couple coaches.
Yep.
And we'll get to one of them here in a little bit that are just teetering. Seat is lava. All right, let's get to a quick break, and then we'll get to Rams at Seahawks right after this.
That was fun. Rams-Seahawks.
Get ready for more UEFA Champions League action.
Absolutely astonishing. It's an exceptional goal.
It's been bonkers football. The UEFA Champions League on CBS Sports Network and stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
What a wild one up in Seattle. Rams win.
Classic NFC West.
Yes, truly was.
The scales are even. There was a fight. We saw an ejection from a superstar.
Puka throwing the weakest punch known to mankind.
It was it was like, we always hear about Puka being the younger brother, and he was at the bottom of a lot of piles growing up, and there was bodies all over him. I could see his visceral reaction to getting shoved, and his immediate reaction was just a little jab. It's just such a younger brother move, sneaking in before mom and dad can see it. But mom and dad saw it.
They saw it right away. And even if I can't remember who it was that he punched off the top of my head, it was one of the linebackers, I think. Even if he didn't have a helmet on, I think that guy's still just standing there like,
it was a get off me hit. It wasn't a I'm trying to hurt you hit.
It was not. He didn't get his money's worth. Let's just say that. Brian Branch got his money's worth in that ejection. He did not get his money's worth. If you're talking about really sending a message.
We forgot to even say this, but I didn't disagree with you. I didn't agree with the ejection. I agree with the penalty.
Yeah. Well, I just don't think.
But we're not talking about that right now.
Hits like that, bang, bang. And now he was a little late to the party, but I hate calling it. Throw him, take some money out of his paycheck, whatever.
Yep. Perfect.
But taking him out the party.
Fine him. Keep him in the game.
Yeah, I struggle with that. But this
Keep
one,
Puka in the game.
I did not know. You just can't have, because of, a punch is an immediate fight starter more often than not.
Yeah.
Now, when you throw it that weakly,
let the little guys, if the little guys on the outside want to hit each other in the helmet, let them. If they want to risk injuring their hand, breaking their phalanges, their what are these? The metatarsals?
Carpals.
Metacarpals.
Tarsals.
If they want tarsals, right? Well, you know what? If they want to kick, they can break those too. But if they want to run that risk, let them. They're little. They're not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to be a fatal blow. I can assure you that. When the big guys like Trent Williams start fighting, that's when I have concern for everybody's health.
I had a laugh at this tweet from Michael Lombardi about the 4th and 1 that Seattle went forward in overtime on the 16-yard line of the Rams, which is not even up for debate. That's the right call in that situation.
Stuffed.
There's the play that they ran, maybe not the right call, or obviously not the right call. It didn't work out. So play they ran, not good. But to go for it there, obviously the right call with the way overtime rules
Go
work.
for the win.
Yes.
You've already done the hard work. You've gotten into the red area.
But Michael Lombardi tweeted out, the NFL has lost its mind. Seattle turns down points and will lose. Unexplainable. Okay. They would have lost had they kicked the field goal as well, because a touchdown
because Matt Stafford was going to go down the field and score.
A touchdown beats a field goal in overtime. Oh, here we have it. I just said it.
Wow. Saints have fired head coach Dennis Allen.
Saints have fired Dennis Allen. All right, let's hit that real quick in that game, and then we'll get back to the Rams-Seahawks. So, Saints game. I got to go
really far down my list here.
What we saw, they lose to the Panthers in Carolina after trouncing them. What was that, week 1 of this season? Just absolutely blowing the doors off them. This whole roster has really taken a step back via injury, via other things. And you saw in this game, Derek Carr laying his wide receiver, Chris Olave, out. He goes down a really scary hit, taken off on a stretcher in that game, right to the hospital. Praying for him. But this Saints offense and just the team in general dead. Just no life to them whatsoever. When you lose to the Carolina Panthers, and Bryce, far cry from the guy we saw earlier in the season. He looks much more comfortable in command. Now, he doesn't look like a high-end starter that was promised as number 1 overall pick, but a guy who can actually play in the NFL now. But if you're the New Orleans Saints, it's time. Sell for parts. This roster, not only do you fire Dennis Allen after losing 7 straight, but I think it's time to
let Alvin Kamara go to a winner.
Every single player that you possibly can trade right now. It just is. Whether it's Marshawn Lattimore, who teams will be interested in, Chase Young, Alvin Kamara, Tyrann Mathieu. You got vets that are still capable. Let them go elsewhere because it's bad.
I feel bad for guys like Cam Jordan who have been Saints for such a long time. And his tweet yesterday, essentially, it felt like a guy who was checking out mentally. And I love Cam Jordan. I respect him so much, and he's been such a stalwart there. And that's just the nature of the business, obviously. And I take a look at the Saints right now, and to your point, they got to find a way to hit the Control-Alt-Delete, reset this whole thing. I'm interested to see who they bring in down there with Dennis Allen being out the door. Who's going to be taking over for the rest of the season?
Are you? I mean, does an interim head coach ever move the needle for you in terms of
it's always something to talk about. It's good fodder. It's good fodder for the blue armchairs that we get to sit in here.
I will say,
is it going to be Clint Kubiak?
Probably, I would guess. Some good fodder though was Michael Thomas's tweets.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Last night, I'll read them here for you guys.
Some real hospital balls of tweets there, Michael Thomas.
So can't guard Mike, obviously the Saints' former wide receiver, said, Derek Carr, for you, I've been told y'all shit sad. I'm not sure that one actually. You get what he's trying to say, though. Dude, scary and panic and just throw the ball. Get him the F out of here. He's so ass.
And he was also driving around in his car, rolling his window down, talking to strangers on the street and asking him, what do you think about Derek Carr? And then these people would give him real reactions. The one guy who's like a parking lot attendant seemed like a real nice elderly gentleman. He was like, no, I don't like him, man. Get him out of here. Trade him. We need to trade him. I'm like, Michael Thomas is on an anti-Derek Carr campaign. They're firing their head coach in New Orleans. It's just it's a strange time.
Yeah, he went on to say, dude tried to lie and say I was jealous of them making Chris wide receiver 1 whole time. He can't even get him a decent ball. He need his ass whooped. They fired all them coaches trying to cover his flaws up. He's still doing the same shit.
I thought that Derek Carr's post-game press conference, when they asked him about the Michael Thomas tirades, in conjunction with the fact that they just lost to the Carolina Panthers, I thought Derek Carr handled it really well with class, as he always does. At the end of the day, sometimes former teammates, they go their separate ways. They don't communicate. Derek said he's tried to reach out to Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas hasn't reached out back, but obviously he reached out in a big way yesterday. It's a shame to see guys who have played together get like that. And, Derek Carr alluded to this. He said, I've played with so many receivers, and it seems to me like this is the only teammate that I've had that feels this way about me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Michael Thomas is not in the league right now. He flat out wasn't that good after all the injuries he suffered, but also this is another one of those where, kind of like what we're just talking about with the Las Vegas Raiders, where you knew what you were signing up for when you got Derek Carr. Raiders fans could have told you this, right? He is who he is at that point when you signed him. He was over 30. He can maybe lead a competent offense when he has a great O-line in front of him, when everything's nice. But he turns super conservative. He just does not have a playmaking streak to him. And now you're paying him cap hits of $51.5 million and $61.5 million the next 2 seasons. They can kind of get out from under it if they just cut him next year, but they're basically eating that entire cap hit then next year if they do.
And it's a shame because this team started so historically good offensively, and we had so many high hopes for the Saints when we saw Kubiak roll out his offensive game plan, and we saw the 12 personnel, and they were crushing it. And it was because that offensive line was healthy, and they've dealt with so many injuries. They've dealt with so many bumps in the road along the way. So in addition to all this questionable, some of the questions we have about the Saints, kicking the can on the contracts. You've talked about this before. Having your offense revolve around, you have to be healthy up front to be able to run this offense effectively. Now you don't have that, and it's looking really – it's awful. It's as bad as it can be.
That's the thing, is that they refuse to admit where they were as a team. They acted as if they were 1 to 2 pieces for the last 3 years or so. That 1 or 2 pieces away from the promised land, right? As if they were on the precipice. And so they were kept making all-in moves every single year, seemingly. Add that new piece on defense. Add that piece in free agency. Go get Derek Carr. He's our savior. No, they were not that good. And they were especially thin because they had, for years, traded up. They hadn't built depth on this roster that you're seeing now come back to bite them. They just, when the injuries up front,
if the fire starts
really,
in the
really
kitchen,
bad.
they can't put it out. No matter how small it is, it's going to end up burning the whole house down.
So yeah, for Dennis Allen, this one, the writing was on the wall there. I'm curious to see who wants to go there, though, is the problem. Who wants to be the head coach for the New Orleans Saints next year? Because it feels like a Raiders situation where unless they really just rip it up right now, bench Carr, go Rattler, and try to get to 4-13,
see how many guys we can sell
3-14, and just try to get
Tuesday
right to the top of the draft. They're not going to be in the QB class. They're still going to win too many games if Carr starts the rest of the year.
They got 36 hours to make moves here.
Yeah.
They got 30. They got to go Jack Bauer, and we're going to give you an extra couple hours, Jack Bauer, and we're going to make sure that you can get all these pieces out the door so you can have some capital and be able to restart this thing. Give yourself a good foundation. But
then you're in such a bad cap situation that it feels as if whoever they hire as head coach is going to be a lame duck next year. You're just not going to get the candidate you want, and things aren't going to be good because you're going to have to strip this roster down a little more than you'd want to. So if you're a Saints fan right now, this is it. This is the moment you kind of dreaded ever since the way they managed the cap for all the Breeze years and the few years post Breeze that we've seen. This is the moment you dreaded, where the proverbial wheels have.
See, and as a player, I never paid attention to our own team's salary cap, let alone the contract situations in other organizations. And now that I'm in the media and I get to hang out every week and talk about the stuff with you, you educate me on some of the situations that are current in the NFL, but some that have been ongoing. And now I'm starting to see this stuff come to fruition. The Saints are going to have to reset, and they put themselves in a ship position contractually, situationally, and because they were believing in fool's gold down there in New Orleans for the last couple of years.
I'll say 2 more points to this game, then we'll get back to the Seahawks game. More Jalen Coker, the rookie out of, I believe, Holy Cross. Best ball skills on the Carolina Panthers. Make plays with the ball in his hands. More of him in that offense. And then Bryce Young, man, probably the second best game of his career. His 2 best throws in that game ended up with a drop by David Moore and a pick.
And the interception.
Xavier Legette. So
eat more asparagus, Xavier.
250 plus passing yards for only the second time in his career. It should have been over 300 if those balls were caught. Yep. So hats off to Bryce
Good on
Young.
you, Bryce.
Finally looked
Hell
like an NFL
brother. Big smile. It was like the first time I've seen him smile in a Panthers uniform, and it wasn't a Photoshop from Alabama. It was really good to see that guy smile and have a good day.
Is he the best first-round number 1 overall pick the last 2 years?
Okay, this is...
He was on Sunday.
This is
I'm kidding.
Thems are fighting words.
All right, let's get back to Rams.
I'm in a really, really delicate spot emotionally right now, and you bring that up. You go and bring that shit on me.
I'm sorry. I had to do it. All right. Rams-Seahawks. I just got to say this. Les Snead. The 3 best players for the Rams in that game were your first-round pick, Jared Verse, your second-round pick, Braden Fisk, and your third-round pick in Cam Kinchens, who in his very first NFL start has a pick 6 and another red zone interception. Ball hawking, turnovers.
That haircut and mustache and production just leads me to believe he's in the wrong era. That's like an 80s player, right?
That really is.
He screams like 1986. I will give my soul for this football team.
No.
Les Snead.
He's not trying anything.
Dudes.
He's not trying anything with that facial hair combo. That's right out of the book with him. And ball hawking is a player trait, not necessarily a coaching trait. You can do a lot from scheme perspective to help guys, but a lot of times you just need the dudes. Cam Kinchen is a dude. If
he's got that mustache, he's like a detective, and he's tracking down the football.
Gino,
I tried,
and Stafford. Okay, I got it now. I didn't.
He's got the mustache, right?
Yeah, he does look like who's the cop?
Like an 80s cop
from
Die Hard.
No, what was the one with?
Remember the cop with Die Hard?
Gibson and
I forget.
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
What's his name? I'm not.
Danny Glover.
There you go. Little Danny Glover.
Danny Glover was a bad man.
Oh, Danny Glover's mom. The man. Gino in that game, dude. What a roller coaster. 8 sacks.
Yo.
4 dimes, though, to bring him back in the fourth quarter. But then, threw 2 awful interceptions as well. Kind of just a roller coaster. It felt like both quarterbacks were either in any given play could have won you the game or also lost you the game.
Yep.
Stafford was throwing the ball up for grabs more often than not. It was a fun one, but massive implications in the NFC West as now the Rams back to 500. It seems like anyone can win that division. I think I may have even underrated the Cardinals, who we'll get to, who are still atop that at 5-4.
Cardinals are a house.
But anyone at this point.
But for the Rams, it's nice to see player 3 enter the chat with DeMarcus Robinson and Matt Stafford seemingly having a real connection there. And the walk-off was great to see. It was an awesome catch. Stafford, I love the view when they show the catch in real time, and then they cut to the replay of Stafford's reaction to the catch. And you can see him just doing his patented run down the field, finger in the air, fired up. I mean, he's a competitor. You always have a chance to win. But DeMarcus Robinson comes in when Puka Nacua comes out and is another target that Matt can find. This offense is rolling, man. Sean McVay's a great coach. We were looking at this team as sellers after the first couple weeks in the season, and we were both kind of in on that train. Yeah. But now they're in contention. So things are getting interesting in the NFC West.
All right, let's get to Broncos at Ravens, where the Ravens put up 41 on this vaunted Broncos defense. I think Lamar is kind of running away with it right now. Zay Flowers, his 4th 100-yard receiving game in his last 5 games. That touchdown he had was just stupid. I mean, just a play that you can count on one hand the amount of guys who can do what he just did after the catch on that play. Lamar's 4th game with a perfect passer rating. That is now the most in NFL.
This graphic
history.
is crazy, Harry. This is awesome. So this is the most games with a perfect passer rating. And 86 games started. Lamar Jackson has 4. Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, all these guys, it took them triple digits at the very least. Kurt Warner with 116 to get to 3. But Lamar Jackson doing it at a pace, a clip we've seen, unknown to mankind, as Jim Harbaugh would say. But it's John that's reaping the benefits of having this now going to be a 3-time MVP.
This Ravens offense feels like, when you're doing like a Madden franchise.
Yes.
And you just stat pad your quarterback and your running back. You're like, yes. I'm going to have a 2,000-yard running back.
My core.
And a 5,000-yard passer, right? I'm just going to have everything. And I'm going to throw to my number 1 receiver every single time. He's going to go for like 1,800 too. So it just feels as if anything they want, they get, even against a defense as good as the Broncos have been this season.
I mean, 16 for 19, like 285 or something.
Yeah.
The efficiency is incredible in a vacuum, but then you add into the fact that you're playing against this Denver Broncos team with the defense, with Vance Joseph and the crew. They're ready to roll. You talked about how athletic this group is, the Denver Broncos defense and how it was going to pose challenges to Lamar. Well, Lamar just says, I'm from a different planet. I'm from a different planet. Yeah. I think Simeon Rice at one point was like, I'm from another echelon. And I think Lamar Jackson is in an echelon in his own right now.
He's on his own echelon for sure. Bo Nix, not quite on that echelon. Just too many misses, but not a discouraging game.
Timely penalties.
And yeah, the Broncos more shot themselves in the foot. They were overmatched on the outside. Nate Wiggins comes back, plays in that game. It felt like when the Ravens defense played the Bills defense, their offense, where it's just those corners can get the job done against lesser wide receivers. They did so in that game, didn't allow much. And when they faced better wide receivers, though,
Bo Nix missed a shot down the left sideline early. That would have been a touchdown.
Massive. That overthrow on a 4th down, and then getting his rushing touchdown called back.
That was the biggest collapse of momentum. And then after that, the Ravens go down and score, and people are like, well, it's over.
It was over. Let's get to Chargers at Browns, where Jameis back to earth. The Chargers defense, though, it's tough.
House.
It's tough. It makes you wonder, what the hell was Brandon Staley doing last year?
Yeah,
because they were like one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and
they had pieces.
They did a lot of the same guys.
Now the same core since about 2021, I would say.
A lot of the same guys. Now they have Diane Henley, I think, has been awesome in year 2 for them at linebacker. Poona Ford has been such a good addition on the interior, stuffing the run. Elijah Molden at safety had an interception in this game. He's been awesome for them. They traded for him this offseason. So some pieces that are not household names, that are new faces in the starting lineup making big impacts, but it's coaching. More like they had a lot of the same guys were there, whether it's guys like Khalil Mack, whether it's guys like Derwin James, that are playing much better this time around than they were last year.
I think I might. Would you mind if we did our under further review right now for the Chargers? Because my under further review is that the Los Angeles Chargers are a house, and we know that they have young receivers, but they've got Jim Harbaugh, and we know they've got a quarterback, but they haven't proven it to us that they can be the legitimate threat that we knew that they would be with Justin Herbert. But I think it all comes down to coaching. And you mentioned Jesse Minter. His defense has been great. He's found a way to get through to these players, and they found another level to their game. They put it into a higher gear. But I think as we look around the league, and throughout the course of the last few weeks, we heard Gerard Mayo call his team soft. They can't stop the run. They can't run the football. And we see the Lions week in, week out show up with a tough mindset and a tough-minded head coach and a guy who enables and empowers his football team. I think we're seeing the same thing being built. And I know that when they hired Jim Harbaugh, people said that was what was going to happen. But those things don't just turn on like a light switch. This takes time. This takes repetition. This takes callousing your mind, your body, and your spirit to go out and do it. I've seen it from the Los Angeles Chargers. I think they are real ass kickers. They're getting a lot more out of Ladd McConkey. Justin Herbert's efficient. He's explosive. He's dynamic with his athleticism. Mm-hmm. And I think that Jim Harbaugh really has these guys believing in themselves. They're a real threat coming out of this division. And anything can happen in the AFC West. Well, we've seen that the Broncos can be, exposed defensively. So the formula is there. All you got to do is have a 2-time MVP at quarterback, and you'll be okay. But this Chargers team are a house. And you talked about the defense, but the offense is coming along. Quentin Johnston, mm-hmm. Ladd McConkey.
He caught the ball.
Yes, he caught the ball. They're getting some production out of this guy, okay? Yeah. Justin Herbert building rapport. But every time they get off the bus, I think this Chargers team knows that they have a tougher football team than who they're playing.
He caught the ball, but also he completely failed to adjust to an amazing throw by Justin Herbert on a hole shot. But I'm going to have to go full Lee Corso here and say not so fast, my friends, because here are the offenses they've played so far. Raiders, Panthers, Steelers, yep. Chiefs, Broncos, Cards, Saints, Browns.
17 points.
And those Saints with a backup quarterback. Chiefs probably the best offense of that bunch. And we've talked about the Chiefs and their offensive struggles. So Titans next week. Bengals, Ravens, the 2 weeks after that. We will find out. Fun games. We will find out very quick. The
Ravens-Chargers game is going to be the most physical game of the weekend. It'll be huge blows at the line of scrimmage.
We'll find out very quick if they are.
They're coming along. He's building something there, man. You can't just plug and play these guys.
I know.
In terms of culture, I mean,
yeah.
Harbaugh. The word culture is thrown around a lot, but when you get a guy like Campbell, you get a guy like Harbaugh, you get a guy like Harbaugh in Baltimore, that's a real culture you have, and you can build something and cultivate it the right way, and that's what they're doing in Los Angeles or Costa Mesa or wherever the hell they play or are. Where do those guys live? Costa Mesa?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, the stadium's in Compton, I think.
Yeah, it's about a 45-minute drive.
I don't know LA geography to save my life. So,
well, the Bears, we lived an hour from the facility. Like we worked in Lake Forest. We lived 5 minutes from the facility, but it was like an hour to get to the stadium.
Yeah.
Similar situation there.
Move that stadium.
Wow.
Soldiers, the worst stadium in the NFL.
And hire an offensive coach. We'll get there. Sorry.
All right, let's get to Bears at
we're
Cardinals.
Here.
We made it. It was a long road.
It was just too much last week. It was just too much. The Fail Mary, the gaffes from a coaching perspective, the finger pointing in the locker room and outside of the locker room, the podcast appearances, the video interviews. It was too much. I've been part of one of these deals where you have a coach who has a side of the ball that's his specialty. I had it with Nagy. Mm-hmm. He was the offensive guy. But I think that this situation reminds me more of Mark Trestman in the Mark Trestman years. We had an offensive-minded coach that had a historically good offense and a historically bad defense. Now and a coach that, for whatever reason, likable guys not very personable, seemingly, doesn't have the fire necessary to go.
Dude, his like
it was uninspiring after the
half.
After the half. We got to look at each other and know that we got each other. I need chairs flying. I need stall doors being ripped off of the hinges. I need trash cans potentially through a training room window, whatever it takes to get guys fired up and motivated. I was uninspired by the offense. I like the connection between Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze earlier, but aside from that, 0 targets for Cole Kmet. The offense looked anemic at times. It's almost like just fast forward through the possession and wait for the Cardinals to get back out on offense. Cardinals are a good team. I give them credit. Bears fans, you traveled great. Bears fans, take a deep breath. I feel bad for you. The Bears are 0-18 on the road on Sunday since God knows when, 2021 or something like that, 2018. It's just not good enough. The Bears are not – they're just not good enough right now. And I wonder if they're one of the next people that has a new head coach. Now, I know that the McCaskies don't operate that way in season, but it could very well be early into the winter.
I'll say people complaining about Kmet's usage, and he didn't have a target in that game. The tape made me think it was a Caleb issue, not a schematic issue. Now, you could call it tight end screens or whatever, but Caleb was refusing to throw.
He was also under assault.
Hitches over the middle of the field.
He was under attack. And he's at the point now in the season where he's feeling things that aren't there. Look at this. And he's running. And he's running when he should be progressing through his reads. But
look at this. Here's about as simple a read as you get. Smash concept. Hitch, corner over the top.
Cole, 6 yards.
Hit the 2 underneath guys. They were begging him all day to just throw those underneath hitch routes. And look at the way the corner's sinking. That's not the route to throw. You see DJ Moore even stop running his route because he knows that's not the route.
I'm looking at the 6'5", 260 guy that's 7 yards in front of me that just went into a soft spot between 2 defenders. Now, I don't play quarterback. I could probably not even get through the cadence successfully or catch the snap, but it's obvious to me that there's some sort of disconnect offensively. It's looked this way early in the game, every single game with the Bears, and it just wasn't enough against the Cardinals. We weren't competitive.
But you saw him just unwilling to throw those routes in that game consistently. And so to me, you can blame your play caller you want. He just got to throw those. Those are layups in the NFL. You can't have every play be a bomb, every play be an explosive play. More often than not, 6 yards is a great play in the NFL. And you just got to learn that, unfortunately. But I got to go because roster building is one of my things I focus on. What they did, trading for and paying Keenan Allen for what they've gotten, 21 catches, 197 yards, 5.2 yards per target, to let Darnell Mooney walk, who, if you just look at this offense, Darnell Mooney feels like exactly what they're missing.
Yes, some explosion, some take the top off, some savvy underneath the safeties play.
Especially with the way Caleb Williams wants to play. We're talking about him just eyes down the football field, refusing to take the underneath stuff, which is just Keenan Allen is the underneath stuff. Yep. That's his all he can do truly at this point. You see him try to get down the football field, and it's tough to watch. And it's hard. It's hard to square that when Mooney's going. Mooney has 588 yards already. Yeah. Guy's on pace for well over 1,000 yards this season, 5 touchdowns. It just feels like they really missed the boat on that. And
I don't think this team gets off the bus every week with the thought that they're going to win the game. I think that starts at the top.
Oh, especially in this one, and on the defense side of the ball too.
That's why I believe in it. That's why every week we can, reliably pick teams like Baltimore and pick teams like Detroit because we believe in their leadership. And even like when Tennessee had Mike Vrabel, I'd be like, I know what kind of team is going to show up and come out there and play. I'm not convinced they all have this. They're not in a hive mind situation in Chicago right now. And if they are, it's some sort of mediocrity hive mind.
That's a good way to put it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, get to Cowboys at Falcons.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
No, I mean, it's
you're talking Kirk Cousins MVP right now.
So, well, when the Falcons signed up to get rehabbing Kirk Cousins, they anticipated seeing what we're getting from Kirk Cousins right now. Efficient, taking care of the football, being able to explode this offense down the field. And that's what they're getting out of Kirk, man. And I was just telling Mike when we were in commercial break, I kind of tongue-in-cheek said Kirk Cousins MVP. But, this guy's balling right now. The Falcons are a team you can bet on every week. They're explosive on offense. They've got two guys they can give the football to. Bijan Robinson's workload is coming up. I like to see that. His volume's going up, and that always means good things for this offense. They got Drew Dahlman back in the lineup, and they can do more with that run game there. We still have a lot to be desired from the defensive side of the ball, but going against the Cowboys, that doesn't show its teeth.
I will say I got to give my tip of the cap to Zach Robinson. I love what he's done in the passing concepts in that offense. The space he creates for his wide receivers are basically via scheme and just gives Kirk options, man. There's just so many on every play. They're just so well put together, the passing concepts, that it's just, he can just dink and dunk it down the football field.
He makes the right decisions.
It seems like a very easy button offense from what I've seen. And in this game, another one where the final score is close, but this was not close for the Dallas Cowboys. They were getting their ass kicked in this game. They can't run the football still. And Dak pulling the hamstring on a play where, almost ironically, the fact that they haven't had anyone outside of CeeDee Lamb be able to get open, he pulled his hamstring on that play because he tried to stop the throw mid-throw because I think it was Jalen Brooks had AJ Terrell squatting on the comeback. Like he saw it mid-throw that Terrell was actually breaking downhill before Brooks was. And so he tried to stop himself. And I think that's why he pulled his hamstring.
Yeah. We're not meant to stop. We're meant to go.
Exactly.
That's why people can't stop their swings in golf either when they hear a bird chirp.
Except Tiger.
Tiger. Nobody does it like Tiger.
But it's just bad there in Dallas. And if Dak's out for a while, dude, I don't know.
Saw Dak on the sideline saying, man, we suck.
They do.
Man, we suck. That's not what you want to hear your quarterback saying. But at the end of the day, that's the case in Dallas. That's the case right now.
And I do have to say that watching Caden Ellis in this and linebackers of his ilk around the NFL. So Caden Ellis, like a jumbo pass rushing off ball linebacker guy who can really win one-on-ones against O-linemen, and how they deployed him in this game. I think he had a couple sacks, and just how they've deployed him throughout the season. I think we're going to see a wave throughout the NFL with these blitz packages of everyone employing basically an off-ball linebacker that is a pass rusher first type of linebacker.
You need to have that.
Whether it's Leo Chenal, Ivan Pace, guys of that nature who can legitimately, if you leave him one-on-one with a running back, it's child's play. If you leave him one-on-one with an offensive lineman, it could still end up being a win. I think we're going to see those guys coveted more and more at the next level. I think
that's that crew in Washington.
Yes, Frankie Louvu.
Frankie Louvu is a guy that can go to the edge. He can line up in the A gap. He can line up over the guard. That gives you a lot of multiplicity defensively. And as a coach, you want a guy like that.
I think we're going to see more and more of those. And people even maybe moving, because Ellis was an edge, I believe, coming out of, was it Idaho? Even willing to move some lesser edge rushers to off-ball linebackers.
Are they going to be selling in Dallas today?
They should, right? I mean, this is not a good team, I think, by all measures.
Does Jerry Jones put his hubris aside?
Who do they even sell, though, is the thing.
I don't know. You're the GM guy. I'm the guy that makes sure our guys are working hard in individual periods.
So you can't trade Zach Martin, right?
Nope.
He would be a guy that ideally there would be interest in, that at his contract that you would, but you just can't do that.
Like Chicago would move on a guy like that.
On the defense side of the ball, if DeMarcus Lawrence was healthy, you could move on, but obviously not. Micah Parsons, you're signing Micah Parsons. I don't care what you do. You're not letting Micah Parsons hit free agency, and you're not trading him. So Micah Parsons not. After that, Trayvon Diggs, is that a guy you're willing to part ways with? I think with his contract right now, I'm not sure it's even necessarily feasible. So I'm not sure there's really anyone that makes a ton of sense for them. They don't have what the Saints have in terms of easily movable parts. It's kind of just, they need to freaking draft better. You need to draft better if you're the Dallas Cowboys at this point. All right, let's get to Commanders Giants. Speaking of drafting better, Washington Commanders. they've turned this thing around quickly, and they put it to the Giants yet again, 27-22. It still blows my mind that people aren't jumping on fumbles. Daniel Jones hit as he threw.
Yep.
It looked like throwing motion. Like it looked like it came out of his hand as part of a throw. So you had guys kind of just, whatever. D lineman drops the initial one, should have been a pick. Kind of just batting it around before Bobby Wagner picks it up. How many times do we have to see this before we just, anytime a ball comes out of a quarterback's hand as he's getting hit, we just jump on it.
Get on it.
We just go jump on it. There's been so many times now, just throughout NFL history, it happens almost, once every couple weeks. There's a fumble that someone doesn't think is a fumble. Just jump on it. There's no downside to going after that ball and jumping on it.
I'm trying to find a video of like 2018. We had a tight end named Adam Shaheen, and he caught a ball along the right sideline. And for whatever reason, the play was blown dead, or he dropped the football before the play was over. And I must have sprinted 30 yards across the field, and soccer slid in there to pick up the football. And to your point, at what point are we going to shoot our gun first and ask questions later when it comes to the football? I mean, the game is named after it. We need to keep it. It's like the same people that are absent-minded and fumble going into the end zone. Let's wake up here, bud.
Yeah. Speaking of that, we got one of those a little bit later on. But my favorite one of all time was Rodgers fumbling in his throwing motion, getting hit. It was against the Bears, actually. Okay. Jarrett Boykin. The ball's on the ground for, everyone had a chance to pick it up. Jarrett Boykin's doesn't even realize it was a fumble. Picks it up, standing there, and then just walks into the end zone, and it gets called, never blown dead, just call a touchdown. At this point, if I'm a coach, I'm just like, every ball we're getting on.
Got to get on it. I don't care if they penalize us for late hits. Like, we're not going to give up this football thing.
All right, but not a lot more to talk about from the Giants' perspective here. They're in tough shape, and their high draft picks this year look good.
What a stat line from Daniel Jones in the first half, by the way.
Oh, what was it? 0 yards?
0 yards.
With a touchdown. No. But Deonte Banks, another rough one from him. And to me, the touchdown he gave up in the end of the half was a big red flag for a corner, because that's just dumb. That reminded me of Kevin King in the NFC Championship game against the Bucs, where they're in field goal range. They have, 12 seconds? They have one shot, and that's it. So don't let him in the end zone. And he bites on a post when he has inside help and quarters coverage. What are you doing? Why are you biting on the post?
That's somebody else.
Why are you coming downhill? You're 5 yards from the goal line. Why are you even trying to jump a route? Just let him catch it, tackle him, field goal, none the same. Like, it's no different. Jumps on that, gets post cornered. That's just something that, quite frankly, can't do.
Can't have.
He's now allowed 420 yards on the season at corner. He was their first round pick a year ago. And there's just not a lot of reps to point to where it's like, okay, that could be the guy in the future. I don't know. I'm discouraged by what I've seen from him this season, unfortunately.
We got Bengals Raiders next.
Bengals Raiders next. Bengals win, running away, 41-24. Raiders obviously clean house after the game.
Oh, not much to cover there, except for
Jermaine Burton,
our walkthrough hero or anti-hero.
So Jermaine Burton, 4th round wide receiver, who you ask any draft analyst, had tape that was much, much better than the 4th round. So I know people had 1st round grades on his tape.
Wonder how his meetings went.
They didn't go well. Was about as big a character red flag from anyone.
What were they saying about him?
In the know. Well, just what you're seeing now.
He's a liability.
Literally did not show up to walk through on Saturday.
So walkthrough, it's not like you're at home drinking coffee and you're like, oh, I got walkthrough at 10 o'clock. It's like you show up at the building every day, and on Saturdays you show up to the building and it's your easiest work day of the week. You go and you have coffee and a couple donuts. Everybody, whether it's the video crew or the equipment staff, they get you fresh baked goods and you get all the good coffee from a nice place in town. And then you have your meeting for the team meeting, and then you go to your offensive defensive meetings for 45 minutes. And then everybody puts on their tennis shoes and their beanies and they go out and they do the walkthrough. And it's great. There's a lot of laughter. There's not any physical, exertion out there. They got fat guy. The offensive line run routes. It's a whole fun deal. He missed the walkthrough. The easiest one of the week. My advice to you is miss Thursday's practice. Miss Wednesday's practice. If you're going to be the guy that wants to miss a practice, make it count. Make it count. Show up to the walkthrough. That's the easy day. Obviously, that's tongue-in-cheek. Don't miss any practice. What the hell? But that's a dumbass move. You got to miss Wednesday or Thursday. Invest in your own physical health and resting.
I lived in Cincinnati for 8 years. It's not that fun to go out in Cincinnati if he was hungover or whatever he was. I don't know what other excuse you come up with to miss.
Alarm didn't go off. Maybe the outlet didn't work that he had his charger in.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's only because if you're
trying to
not
help
waking up,
I'm trying to help my client
because
out.
you probably
here.
went out the night before or did something dumb.
He was
again,
in Kentucky. He was in the hills.
It's not like you're in Vegas. It's not like you're in Miami. It's not like you're in LA, Chicago. Cincinnati's, it's a fun city. It ain't that fun. Bars close at 2 a.m.
Yep.
There ain't no late night spots. I don't know what the heck he was doing, but
I had a good coach that told me one time, he said, if you're out past, what did he say? If you're out past midnight, if you're not in bed by midnight, you might as well come on home. If you stop and think about it, it's like, man, that coach is a sick bastard. He should have listened to my coach. Go home, set your alarm, drink some water, and get ready to go to the walkthrough. Okay. Yeah. We've all seen guys, young guys, go out on Friday nights. It's like a big thing in the league because it's the last day of practice on Friday. And like I alluded to earlier, it's the easiest day on Saturday.
Yeah.
Because then the next day is your hard day. So some guys, if they're not players, if they're like scout team guys, they go out on Fridays, they show up, we give them shit for looking banged up on Saturday mornings, and that's it. But when you're a guy that's expected to be there and part of the walkthrough and used, when they call out 11 personnel and you're just nowhere to be found, we can't count on you.
Jack Harmon was the king of going out on Friday nights in Cincinnati.
I heard Chris Collinsworth was also like a big go out guy.
Oh, that was back in his day, back in his prime. But
the ladies, they love me.
Jack Harmon was a clutch regular out in Cincy. But yeah, Jermaine Burton, dude, you're too talented. He was featured in the game plan heavily. Coaches were talking about it.
Yeah. In production meetings.
And you don't show up.
Right? In production meetings. Like during they do the Friday practice and then they have production meetings afterwards. And Friday practice is like, okay, we put the finishing touches on everything and we're going to tell the broadcast crew what we're going to do offensively. And they're going to keep a secret until the broadcast happens. Well, the broadcast happened and their secret never showed up on Saturday. So he was in street clothes.
All right, let's get to Patriots at Titans, a.k.a. the Kurt Benkert Bowl. If you know, you know. Titans win 20-17.
Help me out there.
Kurt Benkert comp Drake made Mason Rudolph coming out.
Wow.
So that's why it's Kurt Benkert Bowl.
Come on, Kurt.
Which if
I never know if he's being serious or if he's getting interaction.
I think he was serious about this one. And if you watch the game, you would know why we're chuckling about said Kurt Benkert Bowl. But Drake, man, I mean, more mistakes in this one than he's made in the game. Obviously, the end of the game pick you threw earlier on in the game were just ugly decisions. You just can't do those in the NFL. We know that, but it was all him, man. Running backs in this game for the New England Patriots, 15 yards on 12 carries. That's about as it's all on you as it gets in the NFL or shoot any level of football.
Yeah.
And so
he looked like a quarterback on a bad high school team that was a good quarterback. That's just making it happen.
Yes, that's
just
actually a great way to
happen.
put it.
Like the tough kid.
Yeah, because 95 yards he had on 8 rushing attempts. Goes 29-41 for 206, but the play he made, the touchdown throw he had at the end of the game was just insane. I mean, just a guy flat out making a play. Yep. You watch the entire play. I don't think there was any time.
It was as long as the Jaden Daniels scramble.
Yeah, there was no time in that play where someone was actually open. He threw Ramondre Stevenson open, but no one was ever actually open on that play. So still looks the part very much. From the Titans' perspective, though, you have to hate this. You went from drafting number 2 overall, and with the Panthers win, you would have been at number 1 overall after this, to now down to number 9 overall after this win. And there's no real silver linings to talk about with this team. There's just not a lot to get excited about. You're starting to back up. This isn't the guy you would kind of pin your hopes on in Will Levis winning you games. It's a backup because he's still hurt with that shoulder. So you watch this and you're just like, damn, I don't know how do I feel as a Titans fan? I'm just winning games to punish us more to get us out of this quarterback class.
Sometimes you see a car accident on the side of the road and you slow down to look, and then there's some where you're like, don't even look. That's like the Titans. I don't even want to look right now.
That's, unfortunately, it's kind of how it be. All right, let's get to the last game of the weekend. Texans, Jets, all the way back Thursday Night Football. Jets storm back, 21 points in the second half. The offense finally looks good.
He's not dead yet.
It's not dead yet,
Aaron
but
Rodgers isn't dead yet. And Garrett Wilson really enjoyed making that catch.
the catch he made was insane. Both his touchdown grabs were one-handed.
Yes.
And I have a freeze frame. I should have sent it to Harry. I had a freeze frame of the end zone view of Garrett Wilson's first touchdown, which I think was even crazier because it took a perfect throw from Aaron Rodgers. You see the defender, arm outstretched, fully outstretched. You see Garrett Wilson, arm fully outstretched. The ball's in his hand, and there is no daylight between the two hands. It's truly just the ball was the only place it could have been that Garrett Wilson could have caught it, and he could have only caught it with that one hand. So nuts throw by Aaron Rodgers. But it's still, I think that's the worrisome part for me is watching this. It takes Aaron Rodgers throwing perfectly placed go balls, perfectly placed crossers. There's still not guys getting schemed open. It's just
he's throwing them open.
It's just Devontae and Garrett winning one-on-ones.
Yep.
That's the offense still. That's not a sustainable offense because you'll see what the Patriots did, and you'll see guys getting bracketed more and more when it's money downs. And then
beat
who's
us
going to go
somewhere
to?
else.
And then who's going to go to? And so I still do have big worries about the Jets.
Big time issues, and you're going to talk about it here in a second, not only with the injury bug in Houston, but the offensive line.
Yeah. The O-line. Kenyon Green hurt in that game. Everyone and their mother wanted him benched. They got their wish, and then they're like, oh, I guess we see why Kendrick Green, his backup, wasn't in the game because he was even worse. Tough day at the office, but it takes me to my upon further review this week, which is just I think with the way the NFL game is right now, and you're going to love this, I don't think there's ever been a time in NFL history where an offensive line play has been more important to a team.
Yeah, I agree.
Because of the looks you're seeing that we've talked ad nauseum about from blitz perspective, whether it's those, the stunts, the slants, the walked up linebackers, all that stuff. It takes good, intelligent,
brains,
veteran offensive linemen to deduce that kind of stuff. But then also with the two highs that we're seeing and the running game, if you could have an O-line that can do
the basics at a high level,
that can take every defense you see out of too high, or basically say, if you're in too high, we are going to get 5 yards a pop regardless. You are in the driver's seat every single game you're in. That's why you can't give up on this Eagles team. That's why the Lions
Chiefs
are what they are. That's why the Chiefs with their interior are what they are, is because as much as those tackles on the outside are having a tough one, they still, in the running game,
they lead the league in 4 to 9 yard runs.
Yes.
What they don't lead the league in is explosive runs, which tells me they got a couple Johnnies and Joes who get the job done every time, and they don't have the back because Pacheco's been on the bench to be able to make the next guy miss and turn it into a 40-yard run. We see that with some teams, like Philadelphia combines that offensive line, which at times can be really dominant, with Saquon Barkley, and you look at some of these explosive plays. And if you have a guy like Pacheco to complement that interior three in Kansas City, it could be scary like that too.
So if I am a GM, anyone around the NFL, I am just loading up just as many as I can get.
Become a farm.
I don't even really care about my defensive line per se. I think you can do more work with blitzing and scheme now. We're seeing that in Arizona, what they just did to the Bears and their offensive line. Those weren't guys winning in one-on-ones more often than not. It was the scheme
fronts
and what they were doing, freeing guys up. But if you had a good O-line that knew what to do with games, that knew how to handle blitzes,
it's like having a really good starting. It's like
stuff.
having a great starting pitcher in baseball. It's just like you give yourself, like if you have invested into a starting rotation for a baseball team, you have the leg up on whoever you're going to play. It doesn't matter what they do. And I think the offensive line is the trump card when it comes to football. And it's the great equalizer. It doesn't matter what you run, who you got, who's playing quarterback for you. If we have an offensive line that can dominate the line of scrimmage, we can do at will what we want.
You'll just have an offense that shows up every week.
Yep.
You will not have lulls. You will not go in the pits. You have an offense that every week, week in and week out, you give yourself a chance.
And the Texans have allowed 31 sacks. Only the Browns have given up more.
So if I'm a GM, I'm getting my starting five as I want quality across the board. And then I want a backup on the interior and a backup on tackle
And a
that
swing
can
guy.
start in the NFL. And I'm paying whatever it costs to get it. I'm drafting, especially last year's draft. You didn't take an offensive lineman in last year's draft. I question your GM because last year's draft was just sick for offensive linemen. So if you didn't take one in the first 3 rounds, look in the mirror at your GM. A lot of teams did. Most teams did. It was a great offensive line class. But I think you're just missing the boat in today's NFL if you are not loaded up at that position. All right, there you have it.
That's fun.
There's our Monday recap. We'll be back tomorrow with Pete Prisco doing power rankings per usual. Until next time, keep pushing.
Peace.